So picture this, a police sergeant, a driver, and a really dark country road. A traffic stop that, should have been completely routine, but it ends with a man losing his life. So the big question is, how? How did we get here? Well, that's what we're going to do in this explainer. We're going to piece together exactly what happened using the official records. We're talking dashcam footage, sworn testimony, all of it, to really understand the chain of events that led to such a tragic outcome. Okay, let's start with this quote because it's really at the heart of everything. I was literally in fear of my life. Those are the exact words of Sergeant Shane Iversen, the officer who pulled the trigger. And that feeling, right, that perception of fear, that's the lens through which we have to view every single decision that was made from that point on.
All right, so let's just lay out the basic, undisputed facts. Here's what we know for sure. On September 14th, 2022, a Rusk County Sergeant, Shane Iversen, fired his weapon during a traffic stop. And that shot killed Timothy Randall. So, look, the question isn't really what happened. We know what happened. The real question is why.
I mean, think about it. How does something escalate so quickly? How do you go from a simple traffic ticket to a fatal shooting in just a matter of minutes? Well, by digging into the primary evidence, we can actually trace this whole thing back to its very beginning, to a single, critical moment. An observation that, as you'll see, is pretty contested. Every story has a starting point, right? For this one, it all begins with an alleged traffic violation at this dark, rural intersection. So if you look at Sergeant Iversen's own reports, the official reason for this whole encounter comes down to just one thing. He says he saw Timothy Randall's car run a stop sign. That's the catalyst for everything that follows. Now take a look at this. This is the actual view from Sergeant Iversen's dashcam. See that single headlight way up there, just barely visible crossing the road? That's Timothy Randall's car. This is it. This is the exact moment of the alleged violation. And this is where things start to get complicated. On the left, you've got that dash cam perspective we just saw. But on the right, we have an overhead view of the very same intersection. Now, what you're looking for is the stop bar, that thick white line where you're legally supposed to stop. And from the sergeant's vantage point, it was just completely swallowed by the darkness. You can't see it. And get this, in his own deposition, Iversen actually admits it. He says he couldn't see the stop bar, not even in the daylight. So his decision to pull Randall over, it wasn't based on him actually seeing a violation. It was based on his interpretation of the car's speed. And that's a huge deal, right? It means the entire stop began not with a clear-cut fact, but with a judgment call. All right, so let's move from the initial stop to the interaction at the side of the road, because this is where things really start to ramp up. So as Sergeant Iversen walks up to the car, you can see in his testimony how his suspicion just grows step by step. First, he sees Randall's posture. He's reclined, and Iversen interprets that as trying to hide. Next, when Randall denies running the stop sign, Iversen sees that as being uncooperative and evasive. And then the final piece, he spots a beer can. And that's it. That's the trigger that kicks off a DUI investigation and leads to him ordering Randall out of the vehicle. Okay, this right here. This is the pivot point. This is the moment the whole interaction turns physical. And it all comes down to what Iversen described as a furtive gesture. So as Randall gets out of the car, he makes this small movement. He adjusts the front of his pants. Now, for most of us, that's nothing. But for Sergeant Iversen, in that moment, that was not an innocent gesture. He saw it as a potential threat. And that one perception, it changed absolutely everything. And because of that one gesture, Iversen decides to initiate what's called a Terry frisk. It's basically a pat-down of someone's outer clothing to check for weapons, which an officer can do if they have a reasonable suspicion that the person might be armed and dangerous. And this is the critical moment of contact. As Iversen is patting Randall down, he feels something, a hard, cylindrical object, right through the fabric of his pants. And in his mind, in that split second, a determination is made. He concludes, this is a weapon. Okay, so now Iversen is convinced that Randall is armed. He immediately tries to handcuff him, but according to the reports, Randall pulls away, asking, why am I being arrested? And just like that, right there next to the car, the entire situation just explodes into a physical struggle. From here, the struggle on the side of that road just spirals completely out of control, and it leads directly to the final, irreversible action.
So the fight spills from the side of the car out into the middle of the road. At some point, Iversen's body cam gets knocked off. He tries to take Randall down twice, and it doesn't work. Iversen ends up in what he calls a compromised position. He's on his hands and knees. And it's from that position that he says he sees Randall get up and start running back towards him. And this quote from his official interview, it really tells you everything you need to know about his mindset in that exact moment. He felt he'd lost control, he felt he was at a total disadvantage, and most importantly, he believed his life was in imminent danger. So, operating under the belief that Randall was armed and coming at him, that he posed a deadly threat, Sergeant Iversen draws his pistol and fires one single shot. But, and this is an absolutely critical detail from his own sworn deposition, he admits that at the very moment he pulled the trigger, he did not actually see a weapon in Timothy Randall's hands. In the seconds and minutes right after that shot was fired, the reality of what just happened starts to come into a very sharp and very tragic focus. Now, this is a direct quote. It's raw, it's unfiltered, and it's pulled straight from the dashcam audio transcript. This is what Sergeant Iversen says, right after he finally recovers that object from Randall's waistband. So, what was it? What was the object that he felt? The official reports confirm it. That hard, cylindrical object that Sergeant Iversen had determined in his mind to be a weapon, it was a glass meth pipe, and it was inside a case. And there it is. This just lays bare the awful disconnect at the very heart of this whole encounter. On one side, you have the officer's perception, a gun, maybe in a holster, and on the other side, you have the reality, the investigative finding, a meth pipe in a case. It was a split-second judgment call that turned out to be a fatal misinterpretation. So when you lay it all out, when you follow this chain of events documented in the official reports, it all comes down to one really difficult question. When an officer perceives a deadly threat, when that fear is absolutely real to them, but the threat itself doesn't actually exist, where does the accountability lie? It's a question about fear, about reality, and about that dangerous, tragic gap that can sometimes open up between the two.